We are continuing to follow the developing news out of New York. Former President Donald Trump has been hit with a $364 million penalty in what a judge ruled as a years-long scheme to dupe banks and others with financial statements that inflated the former president's wealth.
All right, Trump is also barred now from serving as an officer or director of any New York corporation for 3 years. Queen City News chief legal analyst Colleague Rhodes has been following the story all day. Of course, when this news came in, a hefty amount, but let's talk about it. The 2.5-month trial with more than 40 witnesses wrapped up more than a month ago. And how is the Trump team now responding to this verdict?
I mean, they obviously, like they've responded the entire time, to deflect. If it's legal strategies, delay, I'm going to deflect it. It's not me. It's overzealous prosecution that they're selecting who they want to go after, who they want to try to charge, and they're using archaic laws. And I'm no different. If they can attack me, they can attack you. Trying to spin it more politically than legally, but from a legal aspect, this is a monster case that was unveiled against him. He was already found to have committed fraud.
Right.
Him and his sons both, his entire business. This actual last portion was just, well, how much? How much did you guys owe? How deep, did the rabbit hole go?
So was this on par with what they were thinking?
I mean, Letitia James, when they originally filed the claim against them, was $250 million is what they were seeking. And then after the original trial concluded, they were saying that we were seeking upwards of $370 million. And so the 354 is right on par to what she was seeking.
They ruled that he can't do business in New York for 3 years, but the judge did back away from an earlier ruling that would have dissolved the former president's companies. Why did the judge make that decision?
I think that would have been catastrophic in terms of allowing this business to kind of rebound and rebuild. I mean, at some point, yes, you have alleged that there was fraud and there were a number of mismanagement of funds that took place throughout this process, specifically the overappraisal of pieces of property that allowed you to get access to preferential loans that you should not have been able to get access to. And so the judge, while he did disparage the company for saying that, he also wanted to at least give them an opportunity to rebound and rebuild, and then removing or shielding off the person that he thought was most responsible for President Trump.
Does that then change the businesses that he currently has in New York with that 3-year?
I mean, I would think the same way that he did when he became president. He kind of structured it where he did not have a firsthand interaction. He was not in any leadership role with the business. And I think that's the best case. But when you look at this case, the biggest thing that you got to remember is if you're talking about the judge already deciding that he committed fraud, this whole trial was about credibility. He says overall Trump rarely responded to the questions and frequently interjected long, irrelevant speeches. His refusal to answer the direct questions, in some cases at all, severely compromised his credibility. The judge thought he was not credible the entire time. That's why that number is so high. I
just want to put a point of clarification real quick for our viewers. The video that you just saw there was out of Atlanta of Fani Willis. This, of course, what we're talking about here in the 5 o'clock hour is the New York case. We will get to the Atlanta case in the next hour, but I didn't want to confuse you there because you saw Fani Willis come down. Of course, a totally different Trump case. But in New York, my question for you is, now we pretty much know the Trump team is going to appeal this case. What happens moving forward?
He has 30 days to either come up with the money or pay a bond. And so just like in the Eugene Carroll case, he had to come up with that original $5 million that he owed her. So he'd appealed it. They had to put 111% in a trust. And so not just 5, but 5.5 million. So he'd have to come up with a ton of money to appeal this case or get a bond. Well, they want 5%. That's like 18 million.
Yeah, Colleague Rhodes, we appreciate your insight also. All right, so let's talk about the Georgia case dealing with Donald Trump. It's the second day of the hearing to possibly disqualify the lead prosecutor in the state's election interference case. And Georgia prosecutors are trying to be able to knock down misconduct allegations against Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis, who you see right here. And they called Willis's father to the witness stand today to testify about his knowledge of her romantic relationship with the special prosecutor that she appointed, Nathan Wade. He testified yesterday. Take a listen.
I just found out when other folks found out. Okay.
But as your daughter, as I understand it, never told you one time in the year of 2022 that she was dating Mr. Wade, correct?
That's correct.
Again, that is the district attorney in Fulton County's father, who you just heard testify there. Trump's attorneys now argue that Williams and Wade had an inappropriate relationship from which Willis benefited financially. Well, they want her now removed from the case. And the charges against Trump for trying to reverse his 2020 election loss in Georgia dropped. Queen City News chief legal analyst, who you just saw here, Colleague Rhodes, is going to join me at 6 o'clock to take a deeper dive into this case.